Okay, today we're going to be doing unit rates. So to be able to do unit rates, you need to understand what a ratio and a unit rate is. A ratio and a unit rates are comparisons that compare multiple numbers together. A ratio compares two quantities together. So the first ratio we're going to look at is Yolanda uses 4 cups of, let's say, almonds and 2 cups of dried fruit. So my first ratio would be 4/2. That is a ratio because it compares two quantities together. For every 4 cups of almonds, you use 2 cups of fruit. That's the ratio. Okay, moving on, a related unit rate is an equivalent ratio that compares the first quantity and ratio to only one of the second quantities. Okay, so my first ratio on the previous slide was 4/2. Okay, the way I would find my unit rate, I would divide 2 into 4. I would divide 2 into 4, and you get 2. So my unit rate would be 2/1. So this is a ratio, and this is a unit rate. Okay, this is still comparing two quantities, but it's just comparing one quantity to one. This is comparing two quantities together, 4/2. These are still the same idea, but it just says for every 2 cups of almonds, you use 1 cup of fruit. All right, continuing on to understanding more information. The unit rate is the part of the rate that is being compared to 1. Okay, like we just did on the previous problem. So let's try another example. So Marco earns $85 for every 10 hours. So that's $85 for 10 hours. That is a ratio. So we're going to divide 10 into 85, and you get 8.5. So 8.5. So it means that it's going to be 8.5 for every 1 hour. So I make $8.50 for every 1 hour. That is a unit rate because it compares one item, it compares a quantity to one. So it's 8.5 per hour. All right. Now let's try a true or false question. True or false? The ratio is compared to 1. That right there is false. Okay? Because a ratio is not being compared to 1. A ratio is being compared to 2 quantities. A unit rate is being compared to 1. So that is a false statement. Okay? So now let's try these problems. So it says a car can travel 300 miles on 10 gallons of gas. The ratio is 300 miles to 10 gallons. So my ratio is 300 for every 10 gallons of gas. That is a ratio. Well, to find my unit rate, I'm going to divide 10 into 300. 10 goes into 300 30 times. So my unit rate would be 30/1. So it says for every 30 miles I go, I use 1 gallon of gas. So it means every time I increase my miles by 30, I'm increasing my gallons by 1. So up here, this would be 60 for every 2 gallons, 90 for every 3, 120 for 4, 150 for 5, and then 180 for 6, 210 for 7, 240 for 8, and 270 for 9. So what do the 300 and the 10 in the diagram represent? Well, that represents 300 miles for every 10 gallons. So how many gallons does each section along the bottom number line represent? It represents 1 gallon. So you look at the corresponding pairs of numbers on the bottom and top number lines. Write multiplication sentence to show how 10 gallons and 300 miles are related, how 5 gallons and 150 miles related, and how 1 gallon and 30 miles are related. So it means you're going to take your 10 gallons and you're going to multiply by 30, and you get 300. You're going to take your 5 gallons, you're going to multiply by 30, and you get your 150. You're going to take your 1 gallon and multiply by 30, and you get 30 gallons. Okay, because they're all divisible by 30. So you just all you have to do is take your gallons and multiply by 30, and that'll show the number of miles that you're able to go. Okay, continuing on. Use words to describe the relationship between the number of miles each corresponding to the number of gallons. So it says basically you should go 30 miles per gallon. Okay, and we already just did number 6. We filled it on the previous slide. And it says, what's the unit rate? The unit rate is 30 gallons for every 1 mile. For every 1 gallon. Okay, let's try one more problem. So, 13, a driver traveled 260 miles on the highway for 4 hours, driving at the same speed for the whole trip. Write the ratio of the miles to hours. Okay, so if I got to have miles to hours, so that means miles has to go on top. So my miles is 260. So that's 260 miles for every 4 hours. That right there is my ratio. So the answer is D. Okay, well, continuing on, I need to figure out what's the unit rate. Well, my ratio is 260 for every 4 hours. So all I need is going to divide 4 into 260. And you get 65. So it means I go 65 for every 1 hour. Okay, that's your notes. Hopefully we finished the homework today. We most likely finished in class, but if you do have any questions, please ask me.